Chris Brown, Matty Glab, on location at Northtown Toyota, 1135 Millersport Highway. Come join us. We're out here till 3. Take a look at some vehicles. But pleased to be joined now. You see him on Amazon Thursday Night Football, pre- and post-game shows. And you might see him. He's been pretty active on Twitter of late. He's also the co-host of the Fitz and Wit podcast with NFL offensive lineman Andrew Whitworth. It's this week's Legend of the Game when Buffalo hosts Denver in this weekend's wildcard playoff game. Former Bills QB Ryan Fitzpatrick. Legend of the Game presented by the BFLO Store, an official retailer of the Buffalo Bills. Okay, we got all the particulars out of the way, Fitz, so we got to start here, man. Because, I mean, I go back with this guy to pre-beard. I knew Ryan Fitzpatrick before he even started growing a beard. That's how long I've been around this guy. I did not know him pre-chest hair. We'd have to go all the way back to like age 10 for that. But Fitz, the post on Twitter, the tease, if you will, did you just buy that pick or have you always had it? I have to ask.
No, I've had that pick for a long time. I used to, since we're going back to 2009, really before I could grow a beard, as I started to figure out how to grow one, I really didn't learn how to maintain it while I was in Buffalo. That was post-Buffalo career, but I used to use the brush that Jeff Mazurek and the guys use on those game balls.
Okay.
Brush my beard back in the day. That's how far I've come. But yeah, the chest hair's got to be looking right. And so sometimes the pick has to come out to get the curls out of it,
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure you're already getting besieged with Twitter DMs demanding that you go bare-chested on Sunday night when, I'm not going to lie, I'm sure you've looked, the temperature is going to be in the single digits. I have a suggestion. I don't know if it'll work and satisfy the crowd, but you know those beach T-shirts that look like bare chests? You may have to go that route, like those beach T-shirts that look like bare chests. That might be a way around it. I'm just looking for workarounds for you, Fitz.
Yeah, I mean, some people are saying it's too cold to take your shirt off, so we'll see what happens, Chris. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, switching gears, talking about this matchup against the Ravens in the divisional round. Fitz, the last time you were in Buffalo with Amazon Prime was last year, Week 8, when the Bills faced the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buffalo won that game, but thinking back to last year and now looking forward to Buffalo right now, what has changed about the Bills since you were last in town calling a game?
Yeah, it's been amazing, and even I think back to the beginning of this year, we had the first game, Buffalo at Miami, the first time they played this year, and I was the only one on the Thursday night panel that picked Buffalo to win that game. And so I think that was the general consensus going into this season. Well, it's going to be a lost year. They're retooling, they're rebuilding, but there was a John Butler, who coached the secondary in Buffalo, and he was actually at Harvard when I was there. I was talking to him in the offseason just about the Bills and the state, and he was, just talking about all kinds of stuff, and he said to me, they have Josh Allen. And as long as number 17 is there, they're always going to have a chance to compete. And I think you've seen that this year, and it's been really fun to watch because it's a tight-knit group. This is guys that really enjoy being around each other. You can see it when they're on the field with each other. The way he spreads the ball around, the way that everybody gets involved. I love watching the clips of Mr. Brightside. I can't wait to see that. Just the guys dancing and enjoying each other, and even guys like Amari Cooper coming into this setting and being like, wow, this is what a real team feels like. Josh has done a great job, and McDermott's done a great job of building that culture. And I completely agree. Every time you take the field with number 17 as your quarterback, you get a chance to win the game.
Fitz, I know you had a lot of fun playing in Chan Gailey's offense, which did a lot of 4x1 sets. And last week, Joe Brady's version of that with some bunch formations on one side, single guy to the other side, they really kind of made Denver struggle with coverage assignments. It was one of the main reasons Curtis Samuel's running wide open, even though Pat Surtain is his cover assignment. What have you seen from Joe Brady in terms of how he has facilitated separation for his skill players?
Well, I think the biggest thing when I think about a quarterback and an offensive coordinator is just the way that they mesh. And I felt like I wasn't sure when Joe Brady took over last year, even though he did great. I wasn't sure it was the right move going into this year or not, and I was definitely proven wrong with that one. He's been great. You saw Josh's interview, last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was basically, trying to make sure that he stayed there and he didn't get plucked to be a head coach somewhere. But I think when you see a quarterback that's comfortable, a quarterback that can anticipate a play call and kind of knows what's coming because you're on the same page with your coordinator, that's such a big thing and gives you a lot of confidence. And to me, that's what I've seen this year with Josh and with Joe Brady is they're meshed and they think the same. They've got this mind melt where they're one. And so when he's on the field and he gets a play call, he knows what Joe Brady's expecting. And when Josh is out there and a play gets called, okay, we talked about this during the week. This is what I expected to come in. When you have that kind of chemistry, it goes such a long way. And I think that's what they've built from last year to this year.
Against the Broncos last week, Buffalo's offense went up against a tough defensive line who led the league in sacks during the regular season with 63. Buffalo wasn't afraid to run the ball against that defensive line. They got 210 rushing yards on the ground. This week they go up against a bigger defensive line that the Ravens have, but the Ravens finished second in the league in sacks with 54. What is the game plan for Buffalo this week on offense?
I think the weather is going to play into it a little bit, and part of that is how windy is it going to be? Obviously, the temperatures are going to be very cold. That'll affect both teams. But it's been nice to see their willingness to stick with the run, even when it doesn't work sometimes, to continue to hand it off and to work the play action in. I would love to see more of the play action to Knox and the Kincaid kind of work in the middle of the field. I think we'll see more of that this week, but it's going to be a tough matchup. The defensive turnaround of Baltimore this year is something I don't know that I've ever seen. For them to be literally the worst defense in the league, especially pass defense, over the first 11 weeks of the season, and then to go to number one in almost every category. It's been great to see. But this Buffalo offense is different than a lot of teams that they've played, especially how healthy they are right now and how they're playing right now. It's going to be a great challenge for Baltimore's defense to try to stop these guys.
And then flipping it around, for Buffalo's defense, obviously the last matchup did not go well in week 4. I think the Bills, much like the Ravens, feel they're a different team. The Bills feel like they're a different team as well. And while the Ravens have improved their pass defense to a great degree down the stretch here, the Bills' run defense has improved. I think they've hacked off almost a full yard off their yards per carry average allowed. It went from 4.9 to 4 over these last 8 weeks of the season, which is good for 8th best in the league. I know they're facing a two-headed monster here that is pretty rare and unique, but just that fact combined with knowing that Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Taron Johnson are back in the lineup, which they weren't in week 4, does that change your perception of how this could go and that they could at least slow down the Ravens' run game a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, this is a whole different beast right now. And I think, the Ravens had a late bye. They were able to look at some stuff, and they've been really, really good and tough the last 5 weeks, especially the way they've run the football, the way they've incorporated a lot of the zone reads, the way that Lamar is now tucking it and running it a little bit more in the design run category. So that makes them tough. And I just think, we talk about Derrick Henry and how difficult he is to tackle as it gets colder, how much more those hits hurt. And we saw it in the Pittsburgh game. We had it with our Thursday night football crew for a wild card game. There were guys turning down tackling Derrick Henry when he got going. But I think the same thing applies when you're talking about a defense and identity for somebody like Lamar Jackson, who, if he's going to carry the ball a bunch, I think on defense, you got to make sure that he feels it every time he's carrying the ball. And that's not to be malicious. That's not to say you're going to take dirty hits, but those hits when it gets cold, just as we talk about Derrick Henry, are going to add up on a guy like Lamar if he's going to carry the ball 10, 11, 12, 13 times a game. So I think that's something they'll be talking about. The absence probably of Zay Flowers again hurts, but they've got some really, really good tight ends in Andrews and Isaiah Likely that have played really well this year.
You've watched the Bills and the Ravens throughout the season. You know their strengths on offense and defense. What does Sunday's game come down to, in your opinion?
I think it's going to come down to who's better at converting fourth down, because I do think, some people are talking about this being a shootout. I think points are going to be at a premium. This is going to be a tough old school game. I think there are going to be some of those moments on fourth down in the red zone, especially in that low red area where they're going to go for it rather than kick the field goals. And, both of these teams are really good because they've got a quarterback that can create. They've got design runs they can give to a quarterback, and they've got two quarterbacks that have been really efficient from the pocket this year. So it's going to come down to some of those key moments, fourth down in the low red area, and teams walking away with 7 points rather than 0. And I'm going to say the Buffalo Bills are going to be really good at that on Sunday.
All right, Fitz, thank you very much for the time. Appreciate the insight on that. Safe travels to you. We'll see you up here this weekend.
All right. Can't wait. We'll see you guys Sunday.
All right, sounds good. That's Ryan Fitzpatrick, former Bills quarterback, joining us. Also this week's Legend of the Game when the Bills host Baltimore in this weekend's divisional playoff game. And look, Legend of the Game presented by the BFLO Store, an official retailer of the Buffalo Bills.